Well, hello and welcome to a new, call it speed run, but basically a video where I'm going to try to take you through the next grade boundary. We've moved up a level, and that is 1000 to 1200. Now, the idea of this video, I'm going to play 5-minute chess, and I'm going to look at the typical mistakes that players play around this grade and give you tips. If you're this grade, what can you do to get to the next grade boundary, which is about, I'd say, 1200. So I'm just going to play very normal at the start. I'm going to bring my knights out. I prefer bringing this knight out because I might still want to move my f-pawn. And my opponent's playing a very cagey setup. When they play in this manner, I often like to try and punish them because he's not fighting for the center. So rather than developing my knight here, this is one case where I can put a third pawn in the center of the board, because often I want to play f5. My opponent has now developed, and the first thing we need to look at is what's his idea. He's attacking this pawn, and I'm going to counter that threat and play a useful move. And that's what you need to do in chess: counter, play a useful move. Now here I'm going to over defend this pawn with my bishop, so give it as much protection as I can. And now I just need to develop my last piece. And I would say now, with this setup, I've got kind of like an ideal setup. I've got control of the center, I've got my knights developed, my bishops developed, and everything in the center is okay. My opponent plays a good move. He's got to do something in the center of the board. Now I certainly don't want to take it, because you never want to free up your opponent's pieces. And whenever you have this kind of decision to make in the middle, you've got to think, okay, what am I going to do? And what's the best way to restrict my opponent's pieces and to keep things fluid for me? And by playing this one, I'm restricting that bishop, I'm restricting this bishop, and after the knight comes here, well, my bishop it's a closed position, not so good anymore, and I can take that one. I can do my opponent's structure some damage. So he's now had to double his pawns. Now I want to, because I've got this nice pawn on e5, when you've got a pawn there, it often means you can start a kingside attack. So I could castle kingside here, but I'm going to play a more aggressive idea, and I'm going to go for queenside castling, which I will now play, because I want to have the opportunity to push these pawns. My opponent developing his pieces quite nicely, and at this level they tend to make less blunders. And I say that, now what is the idea of this move? Well, I'm going to go here and just ask him what his idea is. This seems like a little bit of a strange move to me. Okay, we'll kick that knight back, and you can't just throw pieces into your opponent's position without any thinking. That is not a good idea. The idea I'm doing here, I'm going to slowly start an attack with g4, because I want to open up the area where his king is. And I get rid of this bad bishop of his, but that bishop was guarding my break, and now I get my pawn push in. When you castle on opposite sides of the board, you've got to find the right pawn push, and now I've got a lovely position because I've got rid of his pawn protection, and I've got many pawn breaks here. This bishop is eyeing up h6, and we can all see this is really from this one bad move my opponent played. He played a semi-aggressive move, but it had no reasoning behind it. And this is a common mistake I often see at this level, that players play a move that they think's getting them attack, but they're not thinking what their opponent's best reply will be. They want to play an aggressive option, but the position doesn't demand it. And actually the aggressive move they're playing is simply a loss of time, which they can't afford. And here, well, I'm now looking at ways to break into his position, and I can see I've got 3 pieces attacking h6. If I can move my f-pawn, he's got 2 defending. So I'm going to open up a way now to just try to break through to his king, because this will now, and he's playing straight into it. He's not even thinking, and he should have obviously fought there, and now he's in a lot of trouble. I've got these 2 guys attacking. We should now calculate before diving in if we can find a checkmate. So check, king here, the rook comes in check, his king comes here. I can't see a checkmate there. Oh, there's a very nice idea, knight e2 to f4. Let's try that because it's very pretty. Now queen takes here is also winning, king here, then check, king here, check, king here, queen f7, checkmate. So this is a better move, but I've seen a nice idea, and I like being a bit flamboyant at times. I wouldn't recommend this as the way you should improve, but my idea here is this one. And if he takes my queen, then I'm going to go knight here, checkmate, and just to show off a little bit, have a little bit of a flamboyant finish there with the knight coming in, a queen sacrifice. Okay, so let's move on to another one, and again we're concentrating this rating boundary of going up to 1200, and as black I'm just going to stick to e5, and when you're doing, when you're improving, don't switch openings too much. So we know some basic openings already now. I'm bringing my pieces out. He's going for the fried liver, very popular at this level. I'm going to bring my other knight out, and now he's preparing to play this move d4. And I have to admit, I'm much more used to the move d3 here, so I'm really not entirely sure what to play. My memory, as you're still when you ever learn an opening, you will find things a little bit tougher memory-wise. What I recommend you do, if you ever forget a position in blitz, go to gchess.com and just look at your blitz game there, and it will tell you the move to play. But here, I'm a little bit unsure, funnily enough. If I go to this square, he'll go d4. And now I can take that pawn, but it looks a little bit risky. So if you're a bit unsure, there's nothing wrong with just playing a safe move. And I'm going to allow him to play d4, and I'm just going to ensure I keep my center here. I don't want to give up the center. Don't give up the center too easily. You've got to try to keep hold of the center. This is something I see people often do. And after this move, I'm actually going to bring my knight all the way back. Now, it might look like I've lost a lot of time, but when the position closes up, and whenever the pawn structure changes, you need to reassess. And this is now going to be a much more maneuvering game, because there's no real tactics when things close up. When the pawn structure gets locked like this, then you also have more time to maneuver your pieces. Okay, I'm still going to castle here, and being now lacking development, which I am, it doesn't matter so much. But I've got to think how I'm going to either develop my pieces or do something. Now, I'd like to get these two guys out. This is the way I'm thinking, and this will probably be my next move. But I'm looking at pawn breaks, and I like the idea of c6, trying to get rid of this pawn in my half of the board. When someone gets a pawn in your half of the board, you want to try and get rid of it often. But I'm thinking that's more long term. Let's bring the bishop out, develop the bishop first of all. Now he could play h3 and g4, but I'm thinking that might weaken his position. Now I could continue playing normal moves, but I don't like this pawn being here, so I'm going to try and create some friction. And here my opponent has defended that pawn and come down to attack on b7. Now I could go b5, but are my pawns going to be a little bit exposed there after he moves the bishop away? And this is one of those moves which looks really aggressive but could come back to haunt you. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to play this. If you've got my black line course, you'll know this idea very well. It's not a bad move. My rooks will be connected later on. I defend my pawn, and I don't like this move my opponent's played because he's giving up the center of the board. I'm going to take with a pawn. Knight takes is okay, but I very much... everyone should be a believer in pawn structures. You've got to work out if your pawn structure and pieces is what chess is about, and it's often a battle. Do you give up on your pawn structures a little bit to improve your pieces, or do you do the other thing and just try to leave it on pawn structure to look after your pieces? And I have a lot of faith here that I'm covering a lot of squares, controlling the center. My position, I feel, is very solid. Now this move, he's attempting to be aggressive, but again, this is a little bit like that last game. Yes, it looks like he's being very aggressive, but he's not thinking of my best defenses. I've got to defend f7. I can move the bishop to defend it, but I'm going to just go here. And it might look like he's really pressing me now, but in actual fact, these pieces are going to get kicked back very quickly. It's an artificial attack. Another thing that a lot of people fail at this rating boundary. They do some scary looking moves, but they're not considering their opponent's best defenses and how things will turn out. And now, after I simply develop. I can kick the queen away. I can kick his knight away. And I'm feeling very confident here because those pieces are going to be forced backwards. Let's start doing it immediately. Let's push that knight away. And we can now see his knight, unless he wants to lose it, has to go to a very passive square. Okay, I'm going to move the knight here. I'm going to push his queen away. His artificial attack is exploding around him. And like I mentioned, I believe on pawn structure, and I'm going to use that pawn structure now to push forwards in the center of the board. And this gains another tempo in his bishop. So you can see just how his idea has not really worked at all. I mean, it looked kind of scary, but you've always got to consider your opponent's best defenses. And even if you get a little initiative, if your opponent can defend and your pieces will be misplaced, assume he's going to play the best defensive moves. You've got to. That's not really initiative. It's a fake initiative. Don't go for it. Calculate it. You know. And there, my position was just so solid. There's no reason his attack should work. Attacks only work if there's something wrong with your opponent's position or if you have phenomenal pieces. Okay, now here it seems very natural, continuing to push, but I might just take this bishop off first, getting the bishop pair because the structure's not locked anymore, and now it's not locked. Bishops are very good in open positions, and you've got all of these open squares now in the middle of the board for my bishops to kind of thrive on. So I'm just going to try to move my bishops onto here, and I don't need to. The thing is, when you push pawns you give up squares. The reason I'm not rushing to play this move is I give up the f4 square, and I don't want to give up squares. And then again, this could be an artificial move. If I push there, suddenly he can use the f4 square for his pieces. It's much more uncomfortable for him if I improve as much as I can first. So I'm going to move my rook to line up against his queen. This can only help me. I'm going to move my other rook in if I get a chance. Now he's threatening to take here, but I got a little tactic of this check at the end if he takes it, and he's fallen straight into it. He hasn't looked at my idea, moved a little bit too quickly, and again that was a little bit slack on his part. Played very well for his rating, so you know he's below 1,000, but he's fallen straight into this tactic where, of course, I'm gonna pick up his queen next move. But I think the things that he's done wrong here, is he going to be one of the bad losers? Don't be another bad loser where, yeah, you lost your queen. Oh, I'm gonna sit here and moan like a little baby loser. And like I say, you get such more bad losers. I've noticed that these ratings, bad sportsmen that you do at high ratings. Okay, he's played on. He's not a bad loser. Okay, good for him. But what he's done wrong here, he did that artificial attack, I think, as we saw, and he sort of didn't look at my idea in the middle. I moved my pieces again. I didn't do anything too special. I really went for the most solid pawn structure I could get. Little positional advantages where I got rid of his pawn on d5. I put my pieces on the right squares, and I allowed him to make a mistake. And you'll find, even at this level, and even up to 2,000, funnily enough, that you don't have to win games. It's more important that your opponent loses games. And if you just play good moves and take your opportunities when they come about. Now here my pressure is here, so I'm just going to get another piece in to attack it. If you take your possibilities, your chances when these things arise, then you'll normally win, as long as you can calculate well. You don't have to even force the issue. And that, I've seen, you know, a number of top grandmasters just winning games by doing that. Okay, so we're moving up, we're going up. Let's see if we get another one in, and I'll keep these videos at half an hour. We've got the black pieces again, so our opponent is a little bit lower than us. Okay, so he's gone here. Now what openings should we play? Well, I'm going to go for, I know people have said play the same opening all the time. I'm trying to play similar openings to what I have done, and he's going for the Jabava London. Good boy. And I'm now going to go into a French defense. If you remember from previous videos, I've played this French defense idea a lot. And one thing I would recommend is, whatever openings you play, just try to have similar pawn structures, because it takes a long time to understand how what you should be doing with them. And we have an exchange French pawn structure here, which is very popular. A lot of people love taking on d5. I always moan when I get it, but in actual fact I quite like playing with it, because you're going to be equal, and it's about now, because when the pawn structure is so even, it's who can use the pieces better. So one simple thing to do in these positions is work out which of my pieces are good, which are bad, which should I exchange, which shouldn't I exchange. And this bishop looks quite good to me at the moment, so I'm just going to simply offer the exchange of that active bishop. And of course I'm following basic principles of getting castled as quickly as I can, and I'm most likely just going to castle next move and hope to get a rook onto the open line where his king is exposed. Now he should probably just develop his pieces, which he does. Can I disrupt his position? I don't think so, there's no need to. So let's castle. Now my opponent should probably, now this is a slight mistake, he's not thinking about the main important things in the position. When there's an open line, you have to look at that open line, and putting the bishop on e2 would have made a lot more sense, because this check is disruptive. If he had the other position, he'd be able to castle. Now he's trying to rely on some rather crafty tactics here, but I have to, it's a nice idea, quite imaginative, but to me his pieces look a little bit loose here. And you've got to look at sometimes the foundation of where your opponent's pieces are stationed, or if there's a pawn structure, the foundation of the pawn structure. And this little guy here is defending it. So if I try to tickle that little guy there, I might be able to just, his center might crumble. Now if he was castled here, I would imagine that he would have no problems, but if he castles in this position, I take the pawn and suddenly his knight becomes very, very loose. Now maybe he should play something like knight here, but that doesn't overly worry me. I can move my queen, and these knight jumps are a little bit artificial because I can kick it away with a6, but he's found what is probably the best move anyway. And I'm just going to make sure my queen goes to the safest square where it can't be attacked by any knights. And now I'm going to aim to kick that knight away. And again, whenever someone puts a piece into your own half, it's a very good idea just to kick it away. Now if he goes back to where he came from, I will take this pawn and I'll be attacking that knight. I'll be attacking two knights. If his knight goes over here, it's moved offside, and I would say that's a win for me, because his knight has moved from a central position to a side position. And chess is, again, it's all about who's got the better pawn structure and the better pieces. And that's the constant battle in chess. Stopping your opponent getting good alignment, but improving your alignment at the same time. Once you've built up those positions, now this move I don't understand, once you've built up those ideas, it's just then releasing that into a tactical sequence that will checkmate. It really is like that. Okay, well if I take with a queen, his knight will come in here, but I've got two good moves. Either take there, and there's nothing wrong with my king taking here. This knight is a great defender. It stops any checks, it stops any of his pieces coming into the position, and I still keep the threat on the knight. Okay, his knight's come back. If he goes rook e1, I can just take it, and here I'm going to be greedy. I'm just going to grab another pawn. Now, winning one positions, we've had a lot of discussion about this, and this is one of the things where I think a lot of stronger players, they dismiss these factors. Actually, knight takes d5 here is a good move. I played a little bit, see, that is a typical mistake. I played a little bit blasely, and he's found it, because good move from my opponent, because I was like, okay, I'm just going to take the pawn. He's played a bad move, the game's going to win itself, and I didn't see the danger. And I mentioned it before of allowing his queen to come here, and now this is a very good move that my opponent's found. Well done, nicely spotted, because if I take here, his queen will come in, and actually that is very dangerous for me. So I've got to be careful here. After the mistake I made. Now I could just go here, my queen would be nicely centralized, stopping that one, and that probably is safe enough. I'm also looking at bishop g4, when if he takes here, I will take his queen. And again, calculation, if you're a good calculator, it basically, it goes a long way. Now bishop here, there's two moves, f3, and you've got to just build up your calculation. This is something not to do with openings or anything. Tactic books, experience, not too much blitz. Look at playing more long play games. But let's have a look. I want to force exchanges. So takes here, I take his queen, and that looks all right to me. And if he plays f3, then I take his knight because his queen can't come in. He takes here with check. I come back here. And then he has bishop here pinning me. I don't like that, so I'm going to go for this one. Good move from my opponent. Very well played though. And again, it was like I did a really big mistake there. You've done a nice tactic. You've done something where you want to give yourself a pat on the back, or you've won material and you relax. And they say like the times you're most likely to have a car crash is when you're within 5 minutes of your house. So you could be doing like a 6-hour drive. You get near your house and you relax and you crash your car, and you're a wally. And what you should be doing, of course, is not relaxing until the job is done. And this is what I've seen so many people do. Chess is a hard game. Don't relax until the game is over. Okay, well he has come backwards, so I'm a little bit happier now. Now I could start an attack, but I don't really believe it. My king's always got f8. I'm gonna just try to make some exchanges and develop. Nothing special. So try to get rid of some more pieces, develop these guys, and then I can think about everything. I still got control of the file. Now I've realized that because he hasn't got a dark square bishop, my king, I feel, is safe on the f8 square. He doesn't have enough pieces to attack it. It's only one piece which is aggressive. I want to get my... Okay, now this one is trying to be aggressive, but I'll come in with check as long as he can't go here. If he does go there, I swap off more pieces. And after his king moves, I have a number of ideas. I could bring my knight in to f2, which is probably a very good idea. Or I could play very simply, and I think I will play very simply because I know a piece is enough to win. And this is probably winning as well, but I like harmony. I've got to move a bit quicker, and I want to either swap pieces off the queens or force his queen to go to a stupid square. And simplification, not allowing him any chances. I made a mistake, but I'm not going to do it again. And I want to just harmonize my pieces, force his pieces back, and here I'm immediately swapping off. Bang, bang. Now, do I want to lose the a-pawn? If I went there straight away, I'd lose my a-pawn. So I'm going to push this one, and I want to swap off the rook's next move. Let's not lose the bishop. I'll attack his pawn. Is he looking at my move? Is he looking at what I'm threatening? Let's find out. If he goes g4, he's not looking at my last move. One of those mistakes that people often make behind the 1000 grade. He didn't look at my last move. He didn't look at where the bishop is pointing. Otherwise, he would have done something to stop that. And now I've got a very strong Derrico. Derrico is soon to be a Queen Derrick. Queen Derrico. Here he comes. Coming down the board as she comes. She'll be coming around the mountain as she comes. Oh yeah. She'll be coming around the mountain. And I'm just going to bring knight and queen coordinate very well. With my last knight move, I'm allowing the queen to close in on the position. And I'm actually going to bring my last piece in because I can see that if I manage to get it to this square, it will be checkmate. So my opponent's played pretty well for his rating there, but he played very natural moves. This is the first mistake. Not looking at the most important element in the position. Always try to work out what is the most important thing in the position, as well as doing your normal development thing here. And this allowed me to go check. This is walking into a pin. You have to be very careful when you walk into pins. And then he did this crazy move, knight takes f7. Only sacrifice in a couple of situations, positions of strength, or if you calculate it carefully, or if you're in a very bad situation and you need to just roll the dice. Don't sacrifice if it's clearly bad. Later on he fought back a little bit, but it wasn't working well. Okay, so we're going to go d4. This will probably be the last game in this one. We're getting up to 1100. Now, I think for this series, I'm going to play the Jabava London. And the Jabava London, I have a DVD in the GingerGM shop, £20 for 5 hours, how to learn the opening. Or on Chessable, there's a more expensive one, but it's more up-to-date and longer course. The Jabava London, and we've looked at this before in the previous speed videos, stage 1, bring the knight and bishop to these squares. And I'm going to do that here. I could also take the center here, which I'm very, very tempted to do, a bit like the first game. And you know what? I'm going to do that. I'm going to take the center. Why am I going to take the center? Because he's allowed me to put my pawn there, and I believe in the center. Okay, now he is breaking out with this move, which is a very interesting line actually. And I know the theory here because I bloody filmed the DVD, all right? And I know that we push on. And I had this also in the Hastings competition a couple of years ago. A young junior bashed out this move, and then he bashed out this move. This little kid is obviously prepared for me. So from memory, from experience, and this is where you can get on Chessable, and you will learn this line on my Jabava Chessable course. Openings are important. That I know we can take here, and now we can move our bishop to this square. And I've had this before, and this move might look good, but he can no longer break my position with c5, and he often needs a lever to get rid of these pawns here. So I'm just going to develop this one. Now I could move my knight, but I'm thinking about what my opponent's best responses are all the time, and that would walk into a pin. So I'm not going to allow that. I'm going to keep the option of moving my knight because that limits my opponent's options. Even though I'm developing, I'm limiting my opponent's options. And now you can see the benefit of my plan is that when I do play knight here, it'd be a bit silly for him to move his bishop again. So I've got everything I want from the position. Now, there's a couple of, I think, very good ways to play this position, but I'm going to show you a very standard attack against the fianchetto. And again, you should only attack from positions of strength. I could castle kingside, I could go knight here, try to go for the weak pawn, but I'm going to castle queenside, the most aggressive idea. And then I'm going to go for this standard attack with bishop h6, h4, h5, open up the h-file, bring the queen to h6, checkmate eventually on the h7 square. So this plan is a standard plan, but it might be very strong here because I've got all my pieces developed. See, he's now played this move. I'm controlling the center, and my position to me seems quite pleasant. But we have to adapt plans depending what opponent does. So he's now played bishop here. Now, if he takes here, I can always take with the queen or the bishop. My pawn is very well defended. So I'm just gonna, you know, when an opponent moves a piece in your half of the board, why not force him to make the decision? This bishop is very nice still, so I'm happy that he's going to decide to get rid of his bishop. In actual fact, I don't think that helps him. I think he should have been trying to do something with knight a5, which maybe he can do now. Actually, he couldn't do it before because I was covering that square. But he's playing quite passively. And now I'm going to continue with the idea of opening up the h-file. And when you're playing against the fianchetto bishop, when you have your opponent castled, you want to try to attack that fianchetto position. Now he's going to try to start counterplay, but my bishop can drop back. I think I'm a lot quicker on the attack, so I'm going to keep going. The typical Harry advance. This attack works so well because I feel I have more control in the center of the board. Yes, he can do things over here, but I'm not overly worried. I can move a3, c3, and my bishop can come back. I know from experience that this attack on his king is going to be really strong. Now, I could even grab that pawn. Normally, I mean, I think it's actually quite safe to grab it. Maybe I should. Maybe it's the best move. You should always look at the most critical moves. I don't generally like opening lines towards my king, but the other way of thinking of this is that I win a pawn and I get rid of one of his attackers, and I then want to play a4. I want to block up the area of the board. You have to defend in chess as well, so I want to deal with anything he's doing there and then just push on the other side. So actually here I will grab that pawn only because I gain a tempo and only because I'm going a4 and just shutting it down there. I don't normally grab pawns like this. I did say I had another option of just making my bishop as an escape square, but this gaining of a tempo gives him some problems, because if he defends it, I even have bishop a4, increasing the pressure on his position. So he's come in, and now I'm just going to go a3. If he goes a4, I have a lot of options. Let's see. I might just grab that one there in the position. Okay, he's come here now, and he hasn't really achieved much from his his adventure. Let's get rid of that one now, and he might be able to get something on the B file, so we've got to be careful. And I did want to attack him on this file, didn't I, as well? But that's not so easy to do now, because I normally want to play bishop h6 and get the queen in there. I don't see that happening. So what other plans do we now need to do? You need to make sure you always have a plan to improve my position. Well, if he goes rook here, I will grab that pawn and just come back to c3. I'm thinking what he can do. He hasn't got many moves here, so I could, you know, I could put my pawn here and then go h6. And why am I trying to do this? Well, if I get this pawn here, we'll have to go bishop h8. I absolutely love to see that move. I'm a pawn up. He's offering the exchange of queens. Yes, please. Don't even think about taking another pawn. You know, yeah, give me the queen. Okay, and that's, you know, I probably had a better move, but just keep it simple. Now, if I go h6, his bishop will actually find a better diagonal. I don't really want to allow that. I've got to be careful of my clock. I've just seen my time. Okay, so what am I doing? I'm going to try to swing my rook in, activate my rook. I'm giving my bishop a chance to come in. I'm going to have to play blitz chess now. I've been talking too much in this game. Let's get the rook swung around. The other idea is to attack on the h file. So we've got two ideas here. Is he going to go c5? He doesn't. He should have gone active with c5. He should have tried to, you know, I mean, this is another mistake at this level, too passive play. You need to play actively in chess. I always try to play as actively as I can, generally, when I'm playing. Could I take... I don't like some of the moves I'm playing as well, I have to admit. I'm still, like, we should say winning here, but I'm taking a lot of time. I have f3, and I have this pawn break to get on the f file. So we're doing this. Now he should really get active here, I feel. And I'm going to try and eventually come through on f7. So we're getting ready for this here. And he's losing another pawn here. 2 pawns on pre. Yes, I will have that one. Thank you very much. And that's a very nice pawn to take. Now I'm going to just come and try to take another one and keep ideas here. Just see what he does. We give him another check. And I'm going to use the e pawn, as I have a pass pawn. Pass pawns should be pushed. Now rook f8 is looking like a possibility. He's very tied down in this position. I'm going to move my king because there's not much he can do. And as soon as he moves his rook off the back rank, this is what I was saying earlier. You don't have to win positions. You can wait until your opponent plays a bad move. And in this position, I've induced a blunder from him. And as long as I don't stalemate here, I want to get my king to the g6 square to checkmate. So I'm just going to bring my king up there. Don't take all of his pawns because that would be stalemate. Don't allow that. Let's see, am I there in time? This could be quite interesting actually. So if he takes here, I think I'm just in time just to have a nice finish. And we're gonna, well, I say just in time, we've got a couple of extra tempo and we have 3 different ways to checkmate him in that position. Okay, so we're now actually at 1100, and this is, you can see this whole series could be 100 videos or so, but I think we can always redo it. But I just want to show you the process at the different levels and the things you should be thinking of. I recommend just starting with a couple openings. It's getting a bit harder now. My opponents are not making as obvious mistakes. You've got to actually, you know, you can't just wait for them to drop a piece at this level. But I played very sensibly there, had an idea of the right things to play in the opening, which gave me this nice position. I always had a plan, which is important. My plan was this, but you have to be adaptable with your plans. So if your opponent, and my opponent played very well here, he didn't just sit back and let me do things, he tried to do something. I like that attitude, But then we have to adapt plans. Always try to play the critical move, and this was critical. I don't like defending, so I don't normally, if I don't play a critical move if it means me defending, but I like playing the most active chess, and that's what we're trying to do here. If you're at this level and you're stuck at this level, what should you be doing? Middle game plans, so important. Make sure you know if you get in trouble in the openings, go to gchess.com, this new website invented which will solve all of that with human chat and videos. That's what it's made for. And yeah, just the other little bits we said in here. Make sure you don't try too many different openings out. If you're getting bad positions, change the opening, but then stick to something else. Know what you're doing in the middle game and consider what your opponent's doing. So many people don't do this. Don't play artificial attacking ideas. Always consider your opponent's best defenses. And also make sure you please subscribe to my channel and like this video. That's most important of all. Cheers for now.